All right, everybody, welcome. I'm Colleen Rice. I'm Executive Director at Leadership Medina County, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn. We're going to be learning today about mental health, and we're going to be talking a little bit about bullying, and we're going to be talking with three people who are doing an amazing job in Medina County through some of the collaborations that are happening within our community. And I know you're going to learn a lot today, and you're probably going to have a lot of questions. We ask you to pop your questions in the chat box today so that we can address those at the end of the program. And so let me introduce who we've got on tap today. We've got Philip Titterington. He's been in public service for over 30 years here in Medina County. In December of 2015, he became the executive director of the Medina County ADAM Board, which stands for Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health. In his short time with the ADAM Board, he's worked to build strong relationships with stakeholders and members of the community to provide a plethora of prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery support services. We also have Christine Kwolek, who's currently the assistant superintendent at the Medina City Schools, and she's in her 22nd year serving. As the assistant superintendent, Christine oversees curriculum and instruction, gifted education, special education, instructional technology, the business office, human resources, teacher evaluations, EMIS, and registration. Wow. That is a mouthful. She also assists the superintendent with state mandated reporting, suspension appeals, and district policy. And our last person presenting today with us is Devin Alphin. She's the community prevention specialist with Alternative Paths, and she's the chairperson for the Medina County's Coalition for Suicide Prevention. She graduated from Slippery Rock University with her bachelor's degree in psychology and criminology, and she holds her Ohio Certified Prevention Specialist Assistant in Prevention. So thank you three for joining us today. And kicking things off is Philip Titterington. Philip.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking time during your lunch and your busy schedules. First thing I want to say is truly what you're going to hear today is really a culmination of the collaboration, the partnerships that we have here in Medina County. We really work all together, and these aren't great topics and a lot of the issues that we deal with, but we're able to provide resources and work with others because we work together. So as Colleen, thank you for introducing, indicated, the ADAM Board stands for the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Board. We are its own governmental aid entity. It's established in statute. It's comprised of, I have a staff and I have 14 bosses. So there's a 14-member board of directors that serve on a voluntary basis. So they're really committed to this, and they're very active, they have made up really a big positive change. So a lot of what we're able to accomplish, it's because they support and they have great vision. So the ADAM Board, what we do is we fund a system of providers to administer high quality behavioral health services through a continuum of care that includes options for mental health, substance abuse treatment, prevention services, and recovery supports. Additionally, the ADAM Board works to reduce the stigma of mental health and addiction concerns through collaboration, prevention, education, and advocacy efforts. Our budget is comprised of federal, state, and local funding. The local funding is the most flexible funding that allows us to really target those issues and priorities specific to Medina County. This funding, this local flexible funding, really has been made possible thanks to the voters who voted in 2019 for our first Health and Human Services levy. Because of that funding, most of what we're going to talk about today that we're involved with, that funding is critical and instrumental to being able to put those programs together. And Devin was introduced, and because of the levy funding, we were able to create, and through Alternative Paths, Devin's position. So there's walking, living proof of your levy dollars at work. So really, today we're talking about mental health and we're talking about bullying. So mental health simply is defined as a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. Mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in that emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of these. Mental illnesses are associated with distress and or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. Mental illness is common. According to the National Alliance, or NAMI, of mental illness, 1 in 5 adults experience it every year. And we're seeing those numbers really increase during this pandemic. Mental illness could include anything like, include such things as depression, anxiety. It can get even more complicated, like bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, schizophrenia, personality disorders, and others. In my opinion, mental health concerns are being seen as, really as important as physical health in our county. What that means is we're reducing the stigma. It used to be we kind of turn a blind eye or mental health or whatever. Now we're looking at it as like, hey, you know what? This is just as important as physical health. We need to address this. We need to be able to provide resources and assistance for those that are suffering. So just yesterday in the Medina Gazette, there were 2 articles on the front page that were related to mental health. One was the nice work that Devin and her group did for the annual Suicide Prevention Awareness Walk. Nice job, Devin, and all those that participated and volunteered. And the second one was they focused on teen mental health issues through the eyes of junior high at a school setting. So just yesterday, ironically, prior to today's conversation, we had 2 major articles talking about, and once again, getting the word out, becoming aware, and such. And I think we can all agree the COVID pandemic really heightened mental illness. Requests for services have increased. Calls to the 24/7 crisis and behavioral helpline have expanded. People are really reaching out. The schools have taken a more active role, I think. They were prepared, and you're going to hear from Dr. Kwolek here on how the schools were really gearing up for, and they were ahead of the curve on this. So today, without talking too much more, you're going to hear about how Medina County works together to address mental health and bullying. And we'll talk about some of the resources that are available and some stories and things like that. So as Colleen mentioned, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. You can always reach out to us individually or through our agencies. But before I can, I'll be around here. I'll kick back up maybe later on. But now I really want to handle it out to Chris to kind of talk a little bit more about what she does in the schools and things like that, and more of what we're involved with. So I'll hand the baton over to Chris.
Thank you, Philip. So I think what Philip said can't be understated enough. And I think I try to say it a lot of times when we're on these chats or any involvement with leadership. And that's, we're very lucky in Medina County because our agencies work so collaboratively and so well together. So I think today's another good example of this in working with Colleen at leadership. You see the schools and mental health agencies partnering together to show you what we do to help our community, because we're not just schools as a silo and mental health as a silo. We work together to partner to make our community a better place. So what we do in the schools, and not just Medina City schools, but Brunswick, Cloverleaf, Buckeye, Wadsworth. So I'm lucky enough today to be from Medina City schools, but I'm happy to say all your school districts, whichever one you're from, provide mental health supports for students. And I just have a unique perspective on it because I also happen to be a licensed psychologist. So mental health and addressing mental health needs is important to me. So what we do in this community is provide a lot of mental health supports for our students and for our community. But again, you can never provide enough. So we're always looking for unique ways to provide more. So the well-being of our community is very important to all of us. And Kristen's here, and that's kind of why I think Colleen made that joke, because Kristen and I co-chair the Living Well Medina County initiative. And so I wanted to take a minute to share with you, and I think the handout Colleen will provide you allows you to join our digital chat room for Living Well Medina County. So please feel free to log on there. You can join any of our chat groups, but Living Well Medina County in general seeks to make our county a healthy place for all of us. So whether it's your workplace or your neighbors. It seeks to look at ways to make our county one of the healthiest, whether that's physical health or mental health. So we work together, Kristen and I and everyone involved, and that includes the Cleveland Clinic, doctors, lay people, everyone involved. And so the way we started that is we surveyed our community, and that includes infants. We didn't survey infants, but parents of infants, all the way to our elderly in the community to see their needs, where they were sitting with different things, including bullying, and we'll get back around to that, to ask what the needs were in the community and where we fell compared to national averages on a wide spectrum of things, including alcohol use, wearing seatbelts, how they felt about access to healthcare. And so we use that data to see where are we at in our county compared to other counties. And so specifically today, we're addressing bullying. And what we found in that survey is that our students, about 54% of them in 2012, in grades 6 through 12, reported being bullied in the past year. Then in 2017, in our survey, that went down to about 40%. So again, when we went over that survey, there were some things that we felt, even if we're lower than the national average, those levels are unacceptable to us. So we would, again, hope for a 0% in that area. So we met together as groups to look at ways we could intervene and prevent those kinds of things. So I also want to share with everyone, when Philip and Devin and I meant to discuss this, bullying is a very difficult topic to discuss, whether it's workplace bullying or school bullying, because it's a word people use a lot, but sometimes it's hard to define or to say what exactly it means. So in the school setting, the State Department of Education defined bullying as a specific term. So it has to be repeated. It has to be the same students or group of students against another student, and there has to be a power differential. So in the school setting, we use the term bullying to mean a very specific action. It doesn't mean that other actions, when they're done to a student, aren't dealt with or addressed. It just means that bullying is a very specific behavior. So in any of the school districts in Ohio, incidents of bullying have to be reported on districts' websites and reported to the public. So I think we've found that important to share with you today, because bullying is taken very seriously in school districts if it meets that definition. Other instances are also taken very seriously, but specifically if something meets that definition of bullying, specific things have to take place in a school district. Things have to be addressed, reports have to be done, and things reported both to the victim and the perpetrator so that things are taken care of. So school bullying is a very serious thing that is handled very seriously. In our district and in lots of districts in this county, then safety plans are developed. Things are put into place so that students can feel safe. But again, we felt it important to share with you that there are specific definitions for bullying, whether that be, I see someone's asking over social media or other places, that can include social media as well. But again, it's repeated actions over time. And if you suspect there's bullying, absolutely report it to the school, and then they will follow through with you and go through those procedures to investigate those instances. Harassment is also a form of bullying, and there are different ways that that is investigated as well in the school setting to make sure dating violence, harassment, other forms of bullying that can take place over time between groups of students. I think when we were meeting to address this, one of the things I shared that is oftentimes reported as bullying, but ends up being just as serious but not bullying, is sometimes we have students who are dating the same person or have been dating the same person, and whether it's females or males, they get into a fight or tiff over that person and may start picking at each other or harassing each other. That's not necessarily bullying. It still isn't appropriate, and it could be harassment, but bullying is really that power differential when you are attacking someone repeatedly, not necessarily getting into an altercation over someone over a thing or something. So again, I want to reiterate, none of those things are acceptable. They're just not necessarily bullying. Because I also think what is important to address with bullying is there's ramifications, as Philip talked about, for people's mental health regardless of what those things are. But one of the things I think, whether it's Devin, Philip, or I find important to address is that bullying in and of itself has some pretty significant mental health ramifications. And we don't want to minimize that by generalizing bullying to a lot of different behaviors. And I think it's also important to address that bullying is not necessarily just a schoolhouse issue. It can also be an adult issue. There's workplace bullying. Adults can engage in bullying. And so we wanted to make sure we shared that with you as well. So I think I want to make sure that Devin gets some time to talk about some of the things we're trying to do to address bullying as well. And then Philip and I can come back around and share with you some other important things that we're trying to do as a community to intervene and prevent bullying when we do find it. So we're very lucky. Devin is in Claggett Middle School, one of our school buildings in Medina City Schools, and she does some amazing work with our students here.
Thank you, Chris. As I said, I'm Devin, and I am the prevention specialist with Alternative Path. And so when we talk about prevention work in mental health, there's prevention, intervention, and then postvention. And obviously the intervention is when there is already a diagnosis or something like that, and trying to alleviate any symptoms or things like that. And then postvention is like after suicide or something like that. But prevention, the best way I've ever heard it described is the idea that I am not standing at the bottom of a cliff waiting for somebody to fall off so that I can bandage them up. I am instead at the top of the cliff trying to build a fence tall enough that nobody falls off in the first place. And so in the schools, I do a lot of work with the students who have trouble at home, or they have different behavioral issues or anger management, things like that. And so I've done a couple different groups when it comes to mental health. One of them is Keeping It Real, and that is more a drug and alcohol kind of program. But the program basically teaches kids how to say no, how to stand up to peer pressure, how to know kind of what drugs actually happen to your body and things like that, so they don't fall into addiction or something like that down the line as a mental health issue. Other things we've done is right now with the health department, we just created a body image group. And so this is done in some of the schools. It's also done in some of the just community organizations out in the county. And we kind of realized that body image has a lot to do with either A, being picked on for a specific thing that causes you to then look at your body differently, or just something that you see as a flaw. So kind of teaching people, especially kids, kind of what normal body image should be, because kind of what they show in the media and things like that, we all know isn't what a everyday kind of individual's body looks like. So we have had the opportunity to do multiple different groups out in the county, and are hoping to expand that to more students throughout the county to be able to kind of combat that when it comes to mental health as well. A couple of the other things in school, for those of you who might not know, we have created something called the Hope Squad, or implemented something called Hope Squad. I know that it's in Medina City schools, as well as Buckeye and a couple of the other schools in the county, and we're hoping to spread it out to all of the schools within the county. But the idea of Hope Squad is that we recognize that there are kids who are already being taught or already being talked to by other kids when it comes to things that are kind of personal or serious within their lives. And so what Hope Squad does is it allows the students to nominate kids that they feel comfortable talking to. They feel like whenever there's a problem, these are the kids that I know will be able to help me. So they nominate students, and then what you kind of recognize is that the students' names, you'll notice that there are like multiple students who kind of show up regularly in the nominations. And so the kids who kind of get the most anonymous nominations are then asked to be on Hope Squad. And so these kids on Hope Squad are then taught, how do you handle it if somebody comes to talk to you about thinking about suicide? How do you handle it if somebody is coming to talk to you about something personal that's happening in their lives that you feel like you can't handle, but they're still coming to talk to you? So Hope Squad gives these kids the resources to be able to talk about suicide, to be able to talk about mental health, to be able to give kids kind of the pass off then to a adult or guidance counselor who is able to assist them. The thing about it is that the students that the teachers would kind of assume are the ones that people would want to reach out to and talk to and see as leaders are usually not the kids that the kids see as the leaders within their own population. So allowing the kids the opportunity to pick who they feel most comfortable talking with, and then giving those kids the resources in order to allow them to help the students who are already coming to them has been transformational within the schools. We allowed the students on Sunday to come and help with the walk, and for anybody who might have came, all of the extra activities and things like that were all developed by the Hope Squad kids. They came up with different ways to raise awareness about it. They led the walk. They put together Walk for Hope, which was hung on the gazebo. Like, they really took charge of what the walk would look like. And so allowing them the opportunity to do these sort of things gives them the empowerment of wanting to move forward and help people no matter what is happening within their lives. And so one of the other things that we do with suicide prevention is every year we have a contest. And this is the first year we had the middle school do a poster contest and the high school do a video contest. But when the kids submit their entries, they win a cash prize if they are one of the first three or the top three submissions. And so I want to show you guys last year's first place submission so that you can kind of see a lot of the hard work that the kids have put into preventing suicide or mental health or something like that within the county. So let's.
People with suicidal tendencies tend to isolate themselves. An estimated 250,000 people each year become suicide survivors. To get in touch with a counselor, text HOME to 741-741 for the crisis text line. There is always someone to turn to in times of need. For the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the number is 800-273-8255. The Medina County's 24/7 Crisis Intervention Service is 330-725-9195.
You are loved. It's okay to not be okay. You are not a burden. You matter.
I will post the link for this also inside the chat for anybody who was possibly unable to hear it or something like that. But this honestly is my favorite contest every year, to see how many kids send in videos and their ideas behind them and all of that. If you go on YouTube and just search Medina County suicide prevention videos, you will see videos from I found all the way up to 2014. So you can see kind of what the kids have done every year past up until now. And the last thing that I really want to highlight that the county has been implementing a lot is something called QPR. So QPR is question, persuade, and refer. And basically it is taught both in Hope Squad and just to the general public. And what QPR is, it's basically the idea that if we can teach somebody CPR and give them the tools to keep somebody alive long enough after going into cardiac arrest for a medical professional to come and help them, then we should be able to also keep somebody alive long enough for a medical professional to come help them when it comes to suicide. So they gave 3 easy steps, which is 1, how do you ask the question? Because asking the question can be very uncomfortable. Just teaching someone how to be okay with having that tough conversation. The second one is, where do you persuade somebody to go, or how do you persuade somebody to get the help that they need? And then the last one is, where do you refer them? Once they're like, okay, yes, I know I need help. Will you help me get the help? Where do you then send them? And so not only do we teach the kids in school that, but also any organization in the county that wants to have that training, that is offered to everybody. So if that's something that anyone is interested in, let me know and we can set up either virtual or in-person trainings of those. But yeah, that's just kind of a quick highlight of the prevention work in the county when it surrounds mental health.
And then Colleen, I just wanted to jump in. I saw Joel's question about what are the major stressors children face. And I don't know, Philip might want to jump in, and actually I know Kristen's on here too. We actually asked this question in our Living Well survey, and we're about to ask it again, but we were all pretty shocked on what the #1 thing was. We thought it would be bullying or violence, but the #1 stressor in Medina County for students was the pressure to succeed academically. And I'm trying to pull it up, Kristen, to be honest, while I'm on here. Do you remember what they were off the top of your head, in between bites of Doritos?
No, I finished the Doritos, but thanks. I can look real quick while you.
Okay,
guys
we're both
looking,
looking, but we were surprised because a lot of us thought it would be, friends or things like that, but it was pressure to succeed academically. Once we heard it, we weren't as surprised because we knew that kids are under a lot of pressure to succeed, but then we didn't realize that was really overall by far the #1 pressure for teens was the pressure to succeed academically. So we talked a lot about how we can help with that.
I might just, Chris, isn't it true that the state report cards just kind of came out from the state, and I, we touched on COVID and the impact, and we don't have enough time to really delve into potentially the long-term effects of all of this, but just putting it into perspective. I mean, you see tangible, the state report cards across the state, basically every school, their report was less or worse, if you will, from the previous year. So during this COVID epidemic. And then also we talk about maturity. So those of you who maybe have teenage children, yes, who mature in different ways and things, those that really lost the school year last year, maybe in person, that's a lot of maturity and growth, socialization that they didn't have. So they're learning now, getting back how to deal with this, and it becomes more difficult and they become more anxious. While they're looking up some information for you, I just kind of want to put it in a little bit more perspective. And I know many of you experience, and it's not uncommon, that this workforce shortage, there's a workforce shortage in everything. I tend to be more biased because if you look at it through my eyes, my perspective, what I see is in some of these other areas and other manufacturing and departments and schools, there's a shortage, and I understand that. And what happens then a lot of times with this shortage, you're either people aren't being served or people are asked to do a lot more. So what ends up happening, right, is there's more stress, there's more anxiety, there's more uh-oh. And where do they all end up? They're all looking for help. They're all looking for some resources. So they're falling into my system. So when I say workforce, like I said, is being more biased, I look at ours as more critical. So when the need goes up for stress-related resources or anxiety or mental health itself, and we don't have the workforce, that causes kind of a concern. So I lay that out to you because the board is working with our contracted agencies, and we're looking at maybe a PSA, a public service announcement, or working with the schools, because what we're finding, not only is there a shortage in terms of keeping and retaining people aren't, or youngsters aren't going into the behavioral health field as much as they used to. So we see a shortage now, and the pipeline is getting smaller, and the need keeps increasing. So I put that out to you. If you have anybody, encourage them to go into the behavioral health, help people. But to put some numbers, just last quarter, now we operate primarily off of a fiscal year. So fiscal year really runs from a July 1st through a June 30th. So our last fiscal year, I have some numbers just to put it into perspective. We contract with through the ADAM board. We have over 35 different contracts, so we try to diversify. But our main behavioral health providers, those who have the counselors and the treatment that maybe are in the schools and have, go to the houses and things like that, we contract with Alternative Paths, Ohio Guidestone, and Catholic Charities. So those are our three big ones that we deal with. So when I'm giving you numbers, those numbers, just keep in mind, that's just from 3 agencies. Now the county has many different other agencies that provide quality behavioral health that are out there. They're just not under the contract of the ADA board, so I don't necessarily get those numbers. But just over this last quarter, Ohio Guidestone served 825 clients in services. Those could be mental health or AOD or alcohol drug use, which really nowadays, I think we'd all agree, 90% are just the disorders. They have both issues. 825 adults, 59% of the, 825 clients, 59% were adults, and 41% were youth. Alternative Paths served 4,677 clients, 91% were adults, 7% were youth. Catholic Charities is 115 clients who are active in services, 88% were adults, and 12% were youth. Now, another disclaimer, that doesn't mean those are the only clients that they necessarily serve. Those are the ones that we help pay for. So then they have to bill us, and we have a record, and we go from there. So that need just keeps growing. So what I'm showing you is through ADAM board contracted behavioral health services, 5,617 clients were served during that last quarter of fiscal year 21. 86% were adults, 12% youth. So that's critical. You see the need. That's just from 3 agencies. So it's real, it's out there. We're trying to do our best. We're working within workforce. And that's why it's so important. Like, we can help fund a Devin. And Devin's doing the work. She's going out there and she's helping implement those schools. We have great relationships with the schools, all the schools. We provide funding for prevention, or a lot of them have Hope Squad, or they're starting to get the Hope Squad program, the mental health first aid, QPR. All of these different programs are being implemented in the schools. And it's really important, and that's why I'm glad that Chris is here, because Chris and I also co-chair. So Chris mentioned that she co-chairs the CHIP, of Living Well, and then part of the subcommittee is a bullying and a mental health, and Chris and I co-chair that. So you notice we all co-chair. Nobody wants to take that whole responsibility on their own. But it also shows that we collaborate and we work together. And they're very good about putting these programs in, collaborating, working with others to see if they work. And when they work and they have great success, other schools want to fall and they want to follow as well. So that's my little pitch. Did I give you enough time? Yeah.
You did. Well, you did, but I just wanted to say, would you just tell everybody what CHIP stands for?
Sure, I'll leave that up to the experts, actually.
Community Health Improvement Plan.
Yep, that was Kristen.
You hear that? Community Health Improvement Plan.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
I just know
spearheaded.
there might be some people on the call that don't know what a chip is. They might think it's the Doritos, we were talking about earlier, but it's not.
Well,
It's all food related for me.
That's
lately.
right. And Kristen and I both put data in the chat, and it's from different years, but it's similar themes. So Kristen, I wanted you to see, guys, there's a constant pretty much. Kids are both, so we did this survey twice, and we're about to do it again this year. And you can see the number one stressor for our students is academic success. That's what causes them the most anxiety, stress, and depression, is concerns about academic stress. 1 year it was 41%, and then 3 years later it was 51%. Fighting with friends and sports come in second and third consistently. Then, followed up by a variety of other things: dating, relationships, stress at home, peer pressure. So we were surprised at that for sure. We knew stress was important. I don't know if any of you, I can't remember if it's called the Netflix special about the college admission scandal was just eye-opening to me, because I think someone on there said, gosh, there's so many Ivy League schools, and really you don't have to go there to do super well, but just the pressure our kids are under to get into just the right school. And talking to some of our high school students, I went to Ohio State when it was Ohio State, not the Ohio State University. And I remember some of the people I went to school with had 2.0s. It was their backup school. Now, some of our highest ranked kids with 4.2s can't get in there. But your second year, you can get in no matter what kind of score you have. So just the pressure kids are under to get into school and some other things is just inordinate. So kind of there's your answer to some of those questions about the stressors kids are facing. And I think we were really surprised at what that number one was, but it seems to consistently be that number one over the past 5 or 6 years. And we'll see what the results are this year as well. So with that survey, we survey kids in 7th through 12th grade. It's a randomized sample of students across all Medina County schools. So it's very interested. Joel, we didn't follow up. We did some small groups with some of the adult surveys, but we didn't follow up. My guess is that it comes from all of those things. The kids put pressure on themselves. It's also from their parents. But I don't know how Devin and Philip feel about that too. I think it's probably a combination of all those. I wanted to add to,
and also,
go ahead, Philip.
oh no, I was just going to say that it's important for those of you who were wondering, this is the third survey that's going to go out. So correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to have statistical validity for it now that it's gone out this many times. And I think that's pretty important, and it shows the longevity and the commitment that all the partners have.
Absolutely. And I wanted to give a little bit more, I always like to give you something to do so you don't feel like, oh, here's all these stressors and kids are all stressed and we're all stressed, and have a great lunch. See you another time. But I really think Devin didn't do enough justice to the amazing work she's doing with QPR. So I know a lot of us have taken CPR. We feel good about it. We feel like if something happens, maybe there's something we can do. I don't think there's enough to be said about QPR training. So if you have one to do after this, or if you feel compelled to do something, Devin is a QPR trainer. I'm a QPR trainer. Devin's out in the community doing it. Please consider taking QPR training. Just like we've said, CPR can save a life. I think all of us believe QPR can save a life. If you can bring it to your business, I don't want to speak for Devin, but I will, I guess. Devin and Philip would be happy to bring it to your business. It's life-saving, and it really helps people understand that mental health is just as important as heart health. Really, we need to be questioning, persuading, and referring people for help when they have mental health needs. And it is just as important as physical health.
I think that's a
How
great.
long does that training take?
An hour, right, Devin?
Yep.
1 hour.
I think that's a great service. And I know we're going to actually do it this year in our current signature class. So I'll be giving you guys a call to set that up and have that training done for our current class. And I encourage too, everybody here on this call, share this information out, let people know that You don't have to share the secret about the QPR training. You can share that out with everybody you know and let them know that that's available to them.
I just wanted to restate then, just to make sure that you guys understood some of the services that are available, especially for immediate crisis, right? So you can do the QPR, and then if you get in that situation, not only yourself personally or somebody you know, it was mentioned in the video that there's the 24/7 crisis and behavioral health helpline. So really as another offshoot of because we had the levy funding, we were able to expand that. It used to just be for crisis situations. Now, I mean, because crisis really gets defined differently. It's how you feel, and you make that call, and we wanted to encourage people to make that call. So that is staffed 24/7. People could call that, and they will connect you either with, the individuals who answer the phone are all trained clinicians. They can get out there. They can walk you through the process. Also, you saw in the video the 24/7 crisis text line. So it's more of a state line. Text for HOPE to 741-741. Now, that's a good resource. What we found is a lot of the kids, they don't necessarily pick up the phone anymore and call, but they'll text. And that line's set up to really talk somebody, get them from a hot moment down to a cool moment, and then get them maybe engaged in other resources. Now, the Atom Board, we have a lot of different giveaways or things that have that message on there. So if you're interested, I know we give a lot out to the schools, and Devin takes some wherever she goes, and I'm a community relations person, but we have things like, the wallet holders or whatever they call it. They put them on the back of their phone, and it's got the Texas crisis text line on it. We have little hand sanitizers that fit in your pocket, chip clips for the, I was going to say the adults, but I guess whoever wants a chip clip. We do have pens and things like that, but that giveaway, sometimes they have it with them, and then they can just kind of look at it, and they're kind of fun. So if those are things that you would want, they're free. We can get those for you. And then it's important to notice, if you're not aware, law enforcement officers throughout the county are, they send their officers through our crisis intervention training, which is really conducted through alternative paths. We just help fund it. And officers are trained over a week to handle those situations when they're out on a call, or sometimes in the school, or wherever it might be, when somebody or an individual is in a psychotic episode, right? How to handle, how to work with, and how to get them maybe into a safe situation. So there are a lot of different resources that are out there. There's a lot of programming. We are touching on just a few. So you can always reach out. You can look at the Atom Board website. You can look at alternative paths. You can call Chris personally. I'll give you her cell phone and her home phone number. Sorry, Chris.
Okay.
Making sure everybody's still on this call here.
I just wanted to add too, every school district has a helpline. So I put Medina City Schools, they're 24/7 lines that you can utilize if there's a crisis going on. We've tried to reframe this too. I know Philip and I, the committee we co-chair, worked really hard, and actually really Alternative Paths did most of the work to re-envision the crisis line, because people told us, and that's the work Living Well did, people told us, well, I'm not in a crisis, so I don't need the crisis line. So that's why it's also called a helpline. So you might not think you're in a crisis, but if you need help, that's the number you call. So as Philip shared, that was the point of that. So we're trying to get our students and our staff and our parents to know schools, safe school helpline, and every school has one. It's where you call when you hear of a threat, but it's also where you call if you say, hey, I'm not okay and I need some help, and we'll help you get that too. So we talked a lot, Philip and I have talked a lot about no wrong door, no wrong number. We want there to be help, whatever number you turn to. So I put that there for you as well. And then the other subcommittee Philip and I co-chair is the bullying committee, and that came out of Living Well as well. And so one of the best resources as a parent, as a business owner, you can go to is stopbullying.gov, and really it's a website that has lots of resources, whether you'd want to provide those to your business and your coworkers, or as a parent or as a community member. And that's how to stop bullying no matter where you are. And so again, we wanted just to provide you with resources, so you leave here feeling hopeful, and that we're all in this together to try to create the best community that we can for Medina County.
Well, what a wonderful presentation today. Are there any more questions out there for Philip and Chris and Devin about the work that they're doing? Well, I think you guys must have covered practically everything because I'm not seeing any questions popping up.
Well, there was one, I don't know if it was addressed, but just to put some numbers real quick, just because I have numbers in front of me. So I talked about the 24/7 crisis that we all did, behavioral health helpline. So once again, going back to the last quarter of fiscal year, so, roughly June, July, and May, through this call, there were 923 calls or engagements through that hotline. Of those, 71 individuals verbalized suicidal thoughts. There were 40 active rescues in which a hotline staff coordinated rescue activities for that individual's safety. And there were 64 referrals were made from law enforcement for crisis intervention. So you can kind of see the numbers and as you're walking out here, that's just one quarter of work. And I think, did somebody address it? And I tend to blank out sometimes, but Joel asked the question, do you know if the stress to succeed academically comes from parents, peers, or self-induced, or a combination? I mean, I'm not in the schools, but as a parent, I find myself, I need to kind of put everything in perspective. I want my child to succeed as much as possible. Sure, you're looking at scholarships and things like that, but taking a step back. And I have my wife is in the school system, so I hear her side. Sometimes it's like, hey, these kids are being pushed. You need to succeed on these state tests, on such. But I'm not an expert in the schools. Do we have? Maybe Chris can answer that, or.
I think I shared that. I think it's all of the above, Philip, but I think we tend to be a little tough on ourselves and on our kids. And I did want to add this. I'm glad you brought it up. We're trying to reframe the whole testing thing. We think the whole world went through a pandemic. So again, this isn't Medina City Schools' opinion. I'm putting a little asterisk. This is Chris Kwolek's opinion. I think it's unfair and inappropriate to compare kids who went through a pandemic with kids who did not. So I don't know the purpose or the intent of report cards right now. I think we are and should be held accountable to the public for students making growth, but I don't think it's healthy to tell kids how they're doing compared to a population of students who did not go through a pandemic. So I think all we do is feed an inappropriate monster when we tell kids you're not doing as well as kids 2 years ago who did not go through a pandemic. So that is Chris Kwolek's 2 cents, not Medina City Schools' 2 cents. So you're going to get me on a soapbox I won't be able to come off of if I share anything else. So
I think that's definitely good input, Chris. And I realized too that Carrie had a question that you did address, Chris, but there might be something Devin and Philip want to add. Carrie was asking about if there's a mental health person in the schools who a child can go to for medical care for self-harming and a safe person placed within the school. Chris did reply that if they need medical care for self-harm, they should see the school nurse. If they're looking for a safe place, each school has a school counselor as well as a prevention counselor who can provide them mental health support. Most schools, if not all, also have an ADAM board support for mental health therapists. Do you have anything to add, Devin or Philip, to that?
I think from my perspective, the one thing that coming to Medina was a change even from the school that I was in, was how many adults they actually had who would be able to help. Like I had guidance counselors, but I didn't have prevention specialists. I didn't have counselors coming in from other outside agencies and helping kids. And the one thing that I recognized, even as a prevention person who strictly came in 1 day a week, was that when the counselors or somebody else wasn't able to reach the kid who was struggling, they didn't either like set them aside and say, well, it didn't work, so obviously this is how it's always going to be for them, or try and continue to get through to a kid who just it wasn't meshing with. There were times where both guidance counselors were like, look, I tried to talk to this student, we tried to get through to her, we're just not connecting, can you see if you will? And I remember one student specifically who for 3 weeks just stared at a wall. Like she turned her back to me, stared at the wall, and wanted nothing to do with it. And I'm like, okay, well, then we'll just sit here until you decide that you want to talk. And I put on music that I thought she'd like. And eventually she started to really open up and make that connection. And then once she felt like there was one adult who she was comfortable enough with, and then whenever there was an issue and I wasn't there, she felt comfortable talking to the counselors. And so it was kind of giving that that safe adult space to an individual who really felt like adults were not able to help her. And having not just one resource, but multiple resources trying to help is one thing that I really recognize Medina just community has for the students, that there's a lot of people who are able to help so long as the students ask for it or know to ask for it.
Philip,
No, I would agree. It's very comprehensive. No, I think you hit it, that, we provide different funding sources. The schools provide the personnel, and everybody really works together. They don't give up until there's some kind of, take that child all the way through. And also, I had more homework. Mine's a little bit easier, hopefully. Sometimes it's not, though. I would encourage or challenge everybody to make sure that you're able to eat at least one meal together with your children, and a family would be great too. Even if it's a short meal, even if it's this. Statistically, research and experience shows that is huge. Whether or not that child or whoever talk about all their day and you're providing that environment, working together. And it's tough with our busy schedules. Sometimes I find myself, my kids eat all different hours. I can't keep up with them. But just sitting there when they're eating or something. And really, it's very easy for us to say, hey, I just don't have time. Who else is going to work? But if you can make that time, it provides them, and they don't tell you, but it provides them that safe zone. It provides them that opportunity to talk to you if something's really bothering them, weighing on them, because they do have a lot of different things that sometimes, I think back and say, well, come on, that's just kid stuff, or that's that. And it's really what's a stressor on them might not be a stressor for me, but give that opportunity in so many ways. I want to talk about reducing drug use, the potential for drug use, mental health. Have a meal with your child, children, family. What I got.
So last question, I think, what is it that keeps you guys up at night about working with students and schools and such? Is there one thing that, that really keeps you up at night?
Yes, more than one thing, but the one thing, and it's critical. We need human capital. I need counselors, clinicians, case managers. It saddens when I have to say, when we have children who are in critical, we're very good with crisis. We're very good about getting them in right away. Or we're not so good, or we have some work for improvement for that long term, for that getting them in, quicker rather than later. And, no family wants to go through that. No child. The sooner you can work with that child, the better. So it's really about, and I see how the agencies operate. They are machines trying to, and they just keep human resources, recruitment, training. So it's really about the workforce.
I think for myself, the one thing that keeps me up is I've worked with kids in a lot of different capacities. And I think for me, it's the idea that I can't control what happens either outside of school or outside of just my time of being with the kid. And so as much as I can help the kid while they're with me, there's so much more that I want to change for them that I know would then help them succeed more. But I'm not part of the family. I'm not able to make all those outside changes that I think would help them succeed. And so knowing where to just accept that this is what I can do, and this is what I can do really well. So I'm going to make sure that I offer as much as I can to the student while they're with me, and try hard to not worry about the pieces that I can't change, because I think that's what keeps me up at night the most.
And I think initially for me, it was all the seeing all the students burdened with not knowing what to do. We were touting this Safe School Helpline and wondering why we never got calls. And as we talked to students, they said, well, that student told me they were at risk. So we really, when I brought Hope Squad to Philip initially, thought, okay, this is going to be the thing that's going to help. So now that we have Hope Squad, what keeps me up at night is making sure kids know where to go when they need help, and just trying to make sure everyone feels like they have somewhere to go. So I know there's no magic answer, but I guess just making sure everyone feels like they have somewhere to go will always be the thing that forever and ever will keep me up at night. So the more we can spread the word and get people to know there's always hope, I think will be the thing that we'll continue to keep working on.